Hey everybody, and welcome to this week's edition of This Woman Can. As you know, I'm your host, Janice Sutherland, career strategist for the professional women of colour over 40, those mid-career women. And I'm really excited about today's topic because we're probably going to get into it about my own journey. But my guest this week is Julie Gordon-White, and she is the founder and CEO of Bossa Bars, Menopause Energy Bars, and advocates for all women in all stages of the pause. Julie is also an award-winning entrepreneur, best-selling business author, and TEDx speaker. In 2020, Julie launched Bossa Bars after personally struggling with the menopause middle and watching her friends suffer in silence as their symptoms and increasing weight gain were robbing their confidence. So, not letting a pandemic get in her way, she decided to do something about it and created delicious plant-based, nutrient-dense and low-calorie, all the important things, energy bars with all the goodness a menopausal body needs, along with a Meno Lounge community to help women #Meno like a boss. Now, I love that. I love that. So, yeah, it's a topic we don't talk about. But before we get into that, one of the reasons I was attracted to is that your own career journey. I talk about career transition, and especially for women of a certain age, women of color of a certain age, it's a little bit of a taboo subject along with everything else. So, Julie, tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah. Well, I love taboo subjects because I think we should be able to talk about anything. So thank you for opening the door to that. I had a corporate career for 8 years. I worked for Sheraton Hotels, director of sales and marketing after college, and worked my way up actually from food and beverage assistant to director of sales and marketing. And then started, I was traveling a lot. The hotel, the front doors never closed. And I started having children after getting married, and having a 2-year-old at home and traveling did not work for me anymore. Right. And I'd always had an entrepreneurial spirit as a kid. I always sold things like flower seeds door to door. I just like the idea of, I don't know, showing up and offering somebody something and they give you money. It's kind of cool. So, but I sort of put that aside. And then after having my first son, I thought, I want to be home. I want to have flexibility. I love to work, but I think I'm going to go back and try some. So I had a bunch of what I called false starts.
Okay.
And then I was going to buy a company, and that didn't work out, but I liked doing the deal process of buying a company to run. And so I worked for another company and I learned how to buy and sell companies. And so I left after a year and started my own boutique, what we would call business brokerage, that grew into mergers and acquisitions. So started out, I sold a gazillion flower shops, Janice, and then my deal size just grew to multi-million-dollar manufacturing, distribution, large consulting companies. So did that for 10 years. The recession happened. That disappeared overnight, literally. Wow. Had to figure out, what am I going to do? And I just knew I wanted to change. I love stretching myself. And I realize now at 56, looking back, I have sort of a 10-year cycle of doing things, and then I need to do something else. So I had this silent retreat. I highly recommend for all women, especially, whether that's in your home like mine was, or go somewhere, because we always get whispers about what we need to do, what is right for us, but we don't listen to it, and we just keep going. And in the silence, I heard the well for women entrepreneurs, where I could coach women on everything I learned about growing my company to 5 million and selling other people's companies. So I coached women entrepreneurs for 10 years. And then fast forward to last summer, I did the thing I tell women not to do all the time. I started a product company. Product companies are really hard because the profit margin is very small, right? And there's not a lot of room for error, and they require a lot of capital to get going. So, but I'd done very well in my companies. we're empty nesters now. My husband and I have been married 31 years, 3 kids, empty nesters. It was the time to do something crazy. So I started an energy bar company because one, solving my own menopause challenges around middle and confidence. And it seemed like a really exciting, fun thing to do, because now we get to not just have this incredible energy bar with nutrition and solving sugar cravings, so hard. We get to have all these amazing conversations with women about, like you, what you're doing on the career side, what women are experiencing in their bodies as they go through this transition, how they experience menopause at work.
Yes.
That's a thing, not just at home, not just in our relationships, not just our body, but how it shows up in their career and confidence, right? All those things that you were mentioning. So that's a long answer to your question, but that's the whole scoop.
But that's great. And like you said, I work with women who are going through transition. And it's funny that you said about menopause at work, because I'll share my story a little bit. I was going through, before I went into entrepreneurship, I was a CEO for a corporate company, for a large telecoms company. We were going through huge restructures. So stress anyway. And I didn't realize at the time that I was menopausal. And I made some decisions at that point. And one of those decisions was to no longer be in corporate at the same time. And it didn't dawn on me till, and I remember saying to people that, I was, the job was this and I hated it. And I was the word that rhymed with itch to my husband at home, and et cetera, et cetera. And I totally didn't recognize what was happening to me on the menopause front, because I put it all down to the job. I put it all down to stress. Everything that was happening to me, I put it all down to work. And when I look back, and probably gave myself 12 months later when everything was all kind of settled, I thought, actually, I think that's what was happening at the time as I was going through this whole process. Would I have made the same decisions now or then as I did then? I think the answer is yes, but I do think it's how much that aspect of us as women and transitioning in and careers doesn't get recognized, or gets kind of swept under the carpet a little bit.
Right. I think you may have had more grace with yourself going through that experience. Instead of being, beating yourself up for how you're feeling, or memory loss, or, making mistakes, things like that. Or, just, and even at home, like, oh, this is what I'm experiencing. Because I was aware, I got to have conversations mostly with my husband. I have my own company, so it wasn't such a big deal, but, and I coach women. So we always talk about all the things. But, this is my family, my kids, even who are at home during, I went through 10 years of perimenopause before I was finished, in postmenopause. And talking to our teenagers at the time, look, this is what I'm experiencing. Yeah. So, when I start ripping my clothes off and go outside for a minute and it's 42 degrees, don't freak out. It's okay. This is what's happening. Or, just having a conversation about it. And giving myself the space and grace to experience what it is. And that's why I think it's super important that women talk about it, and talk about it as it relates to career and workspace, because menopause or perimenopause, menopause is just actually one day when you're in your cycle, right? But perimenopause is the long journey for many women. And it happens right when we are at our optimal economic peak, when we are leaders, when we are capable of running divisions and companies and making the most money, managing the most people. And then here comes the pause, right? So it doesn't mean we can't do all of those things, but we still could have some grace and consideration in how we're processing time.
Yeah. And I think, when you talk about the grace as well, and I think from a work perspective, I'm thinking off the top of my head here, I probably sat in meetings and started fanning, get hot, get a little hot. And that is probably the most it gets recognized when you're
Right.
at work, and somebody makes a joke about it,
Right.
"Ooh, you're having a hot flush,"
Yeah.
So for women who are going through perimenopause and are at work or just trying to navigate that career move because they've got other things on their mind at the same time, what's some sort of advice you can share? I suppose two fronts. What's some advice you can share with them for how they navigate it? And two, for employers listening to this, how can they, I don't want to say the word accommodate because that's not the word, but how can they factor that in when it comes to women on their team?
Yeah. One, for women experiencing it, I say call it out. If it's the elephant in the room, we don't need to act like it doesn't exist, hide it, be embarrassed. Like, I just want to tell everybody right now, I'm having a power surge. So, buckle up your seatbelt. Let me take my jacket off for a minute here. And I'm having a power surge, so make it fun, share it. We don't need to hide it. And just call it out. I'm big on that in general. Like when things are awkward or uncomfortable, just say it because everyone's thinking it anyway. So just bring some light to it and move on. So that's why I say, instead of like, oh, I'm having you say a hot flush. I know that's very British. We say a hot flush. They're all the same thing, but I call it a power surge, right? Let's empower the experience. And so call it out. Tell people, watch out, I'm having like a real flash of genius, literally a flash of genius. And then no one has to feel awkward about it, and especially when you're perspiring or whatever's happening in your body. So on that side, from an employer perspective, I think employers need to educate themselves just as you would a woman who is pregnant or a man who needs to take parental leave or whatever experiences, that half of your population, if you've got female workers, female employees, leaders, executives, they're all going to go through this if they're in those stages. And perimenopause can start as early as 38 years old, or you can have medically induced, right? So you might be 35 and then you have a hysterectomy and or breast cancer or something. It could happen later. So educate yourself as human resources, head of people, about what can happen. And it can be a lovely lunch and learn, navigating perimenopause through your career and advancing your career during the stages of perimenopause. So it doesn't have to be punitive, doesn't have to be embarrassing. It's just like anything else, how to be a parent and be a great leader at the same time.
Thank you.
UK, actually, they do a really beautiful job of this because from what I've learned from my own research, they understand that women are opting out of the workplace and they want to keep women in the workplace. So they need to be a lot more accommodating. So we're behind in the US on that. For sure.
And it's not just the US, as you know, I'm in the Caribbean, I'm in the islands. And I remember pitching to an organization about leading multi-generational teams. And I pointed out that, for not, a significant amount of your team, women are going to be over the age of 40. And, it's not a secret that they're going to be experiencing perimenopause. And I was pitching to a woman. And when I mentioned the word menopause, she almost dropped off her chair. And I'm looking at her thinking, I know you're either going through it or you've gone through it based on what I can see. But she wouldn't touch the level of sensitivity. And I'm like, but it's totally natural. And you wouldn't hesitate talking about puberty, or maybe you would. But, how do we naturalize these type of conversations in, I suppose, in countries or markets where it really is a taboo subject?
Right. Well, we talk about it, first of all. I host a conversation every Tuesday on Instagram called the Meno Lounge, where I invite women on. You can come on and tell your story. We have experts that are doctors, or today I just had one a little bit ago talking about a holistic approach to handling all of the stages of menopause. And so we have to talk about it. Those of us who have been through it, who are comfortable with it, who are experiencing it, we need to share it.
Yeah.
Talk about it with our daughters, our sisters, our friends about it. Even some of my friends, when I started the company, they're like, why are you going to start a menopause bar company? Like, why not? So it's real. So we need, those of us that are comfortable about it, comfortable with it, need to talk about it. And we need to educate all of the women around us to create that ripple effect. And so just recognize that I believe in the past, it's associated with aging, and we're such an society.
Yeah.
We don't want to talk about aging, and it can be placed in the sexual health space, which that doesn't need to go there, so that's why I think there's a level of discomfort talking about it, but it's so now. I mean, we're not uncomfortable talking about somebody giving birth through the same place.
True. It's true. It's true. Very, 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 very true. Very, very true.
Silly. We're just silly, right? So let's just talk about it and start with our young women and my sons. I have 2 sons. They know all about menopause more than they ever wanted to know, but be prepared. It's fine.
Yeah. And if they have female partners, the chances are they're going to experience them. You definitely need to know. Let's sensitize you to that. So thanks for that, Julie. So let me just ask you a quick question. So as I said, we both deal with women transition in various aspects of transition. So for a woman who's already having the trepidation or the lack of confidence about career change, because that's what I come across quite a lot. And they're also going through the perimenopause, which could be impacting, how they feel about themselves. What would you recommend or suggest they do to kind of help them transition through both periods? No pun intended. Just realized.
I would say, first of all, don't rush yourself. It goes back to that word grace. Especially, career women, we tend to be driven, goal oriented. We're trying to get somewhere all the time. And I really believe once we get into our 40s, the hustle is not sexy. That's like my least favorite word. It's like hustling is not sexy. When you're 20, before that, I hustled. I worked hard and I loved it, pushing that boulder uphill. But at some point in your life, especially going through symptoms and the experience of perimenopause, we want to go with the momentum. We don't want to push anything anymore. So give yourself some time to evolve a bit and just back up about pushing forward. You don't need to push anymore. You've got enough life experience. You want to get yourself in the stream so you can ride the momentum and let the momentum of doing something you love. I call them superpowers, actually. It's the intersection between what you really love and what you're good at. Most people focus on what they're good at, but they may not love it. Just because you're good at it doesn't mean you should do it, So your superpowers, that's where momentum happens, because there's so much joy and energy that comes from doing it, and you're great at it, that just builds on itself. But making sure that you just slow down enough to take time to see what's there for you. Don't rush. It could be the time that you want to transition out of corporate to pursue an entrepreneurial dream that many women have. I think it's a beautiful time, because many women in their 40s are a little bit more financially stable. So there's a little bit more room financially to take a chance on something that you love, especially in your 50s as well. So that's a great time, but mostly just to slow down and experience what you're going through. It's normal. And if anything, feel more confident, because you're transitioning into the most empowering time of your life. You're heading into greatness. So we don't have to worry that we don't feel as energetic, that our brain is a little bit foggy, we're making more typos on the emails or whatever is happening. It's a good sign. It's what we believe about it. There's a lot of positiveness happening there. So slow down, get quiet enough to know what's there for you and what's next.
Fabulous, fabulous. Thank you for that. So I'm going to touch a little bit just on your career, because we touched a lot about the other side, which is great. But you have a wealth of experience of career change and career transition. Yeah, you've kept reinventing yourself. I love your 10-year cycle. I love all of that. So, but Julie, if just thinking back, if you hadn't gone for it, if you hadn't made that move, you hadn't gone followed what your passion was, what do you think? What regrets do you think you would have had?
Yeah, I'm not a regretful person in general.
Cool.
But I used to say my one regret is I didn't go to law school, which now that I look back on, I'm like, oh, I'm really glad I didn't go to law school. You'd have to deal with conflict all the time, more so, no regrets. No regrets. I think the only regret, if I had to pick something, was that I didn't feel more confident in the businesses I started sooner.
Yeah.
That I would start something and then I would stop and I'd start something else. And it was because I didn't feel confident. So the only regret wasn't trusting myself sooner.
Right. Because I was going to touch on that, because you talked about having false starts, lots of false starts, and I love that. So how did those false starts make a positive difference in your career?
Yeah, it didn't feel like it at the time. Let me just tell you. They're failures, right? But I prefer to frame them as a false start, because I believe, if I took all of those business cards that I had made for all those, they're literally stepping stones, right? From where I was to where I am now. And I wouldn't be where I am, have the companies, the success, had I not tried all those things. So I forgot why I was saying that now, menopause. So having those different, pieces lead you to where you're going. So nothing is wasted. Was that the right answer there?
No, that's great. That's great. That's spot on. That's spot on. So just share with us a success quote or a mantra that you use and why it's meaningful to you, Julie.
Yeah. One I'd love to share, and it's for myself, is that every oak tree started as an acorn. And it's unknown, and it just means that you can start this small, right where you are, and keep going. Especially, having coached women entrepreneurs for 10 years. Again, women they don't trust themselves. So instead of staying planted and watering their seed right where they are, they plant the seed and then they get wobbly and then they hop over here and they plant another one and they hop over here, right? They keep trying, starting, instead of trusting yourself, watering right where you are, going deep, not realizing you're 3 feet from gold, which is going to grow your huge oak tree. So just trusting that it's okay to start small, but think big, because anything is possible. That's what that means.
And I love that, because I think that was probably my learning for me for the past 12 months, was that I'd moved into the entrepreneurial space and it was all very new to me and stuff like that. And I think I was trying to find what was I passionate about. There was the obvious things, but it wasn't the obvious things I could do, but not what I was passionate about. And so for me, it's like, okay, this is it now. Plant it, stick to it, focus on it. It'll grow. So I think that's great. That's great advice. So we're coming down to our last couple of questions. This will get you out of the hot seat. Julie, what are the 3 things you've learned about yourself during your career?
I've learned to trust myself. I've learned to be decisive, because you have to make decisions as a CEO. You can't sit on things for too long. And then I would say something I've learned more recently that I like to say is I've learned how to be egoless. Early on in my business career, I wanted to do it the way I wanted to do it, because that was the best way. Of course it was, But as I've matured as a person, as I have matured as a CEO and entrepreneur, there's so many more beautiful ideas than mine. Yeah. And the best idea is the idea that's going to actually achieve the goal and impact that we want to have. And only by me being egoless as the leader of the organization can we achieve that. Yeah. We can go so much farther collaborating than just what I think is the right thing.
Great answer.
So being egoless.
Excellent. Yeah. So then that would lead me on to then, what does success feel like to you?
Yeah, I love that question. One, it feels like fun. Okay, first of all, it's got to be fun. I'm not going to do it if it's not fun. I worked hard in my life, and that's one of the most important values. I need to love every day because, especially a startup, a consumer packaged goods company, I'm a lot. And so, but I love every single piece of it. So it has to be fun. It has to create an impact. And that's why I've loved coaching women. I've coached hundreds of women in person. But I wanted to have at this stage of my journey, a product that could touch literally millions of women. Right. And I see our Bossa Bars as a menopause conversation starter, as a talking stick to help millions of women smash the taboos around menopause, empower. Well, we like to say, our bars empower and energize the pause, starting with nutrition. So I want to be able to impact millions of women. So that's a second. And then I do not shy away from a financial goal because money, it's so important for women to embrace money, embrace making money for themselves, making money for their business, for their community, because economic independence is what my whole TEDx talk was about, why women entrepreneurs should raise girl entrepreneurs. Women need to be economically independent. I'm very fortunate. I have a wonderful husband. We have combined income, all those good things. But women need to be economically independent. It's how we grow our community. It's how we grow villages. And so it's really how we invest in education and children. It's just what women do. And it's very, very important that we are economically empowered. And many women don't want to talk about money. They think, I think that's another taboo subject.
Another taboo subject. Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Nothing wrong with that. So having a goal, making as much money as possible, and doing beautiful things with your money. We can make such an impact. Someone said to me, just imagine if Mother Teresa was her beautiful soul and she had a lot of money too. What impact that she could make. So don't shy away from that. Have money, financial, monetary goals for your company and for yourself. It's a great scorecard of success because you put that together with fun, impact, and financial gain. Everybody wins. It's a beautiful thing.
Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. So that was my interview. So Julie, but if anybody wants to know more about what you do, know more about Bossa Bars, get hold of, how can they do all that? How can they do the wonderful stuff?
All the fun things. You can go to bossabars.com, BOSSA bars.com, and learn more about the bars there, all the good things there. You can find us on Instagram, Bossa Bars for Menopause. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. Just search my name, Julie Gordon White, and I love LinkedIn. It's funny, LinkedIn has been actually a wonderful platform for menopause. So happy to chat with you there. So find me on all the places, and for sure try Bossa Bars for sure. I have to get you some too.
Excellent, excellent. I'll be sure to put all the links in the show notes. So thank you so much for being so open and sharing today. I loved it. And I hope that women listening, really get some great takeaways from today's interview.
Thanks, Jess. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.